Hi everyone. This is another talk in the series about living well, and this one is all about learning great life habits from Jesus. So I'm just going to start by sharing my screen with you and bringing myself across onto that screen. So there we go. Living well, learning great life habits from Jesus. Learning is the key word there. If we're not learning, then we're not growing and changing. Being a Christian is all about learning. A lot of people think that being a Christian is all about simply believing the right set of ideas, and then you just hang around and wait until you die and you go to heaven to collect your reward. If that's your idea of what a Christian is, then you have been seriously undersold Christianity. The Christian way of life is a way of life. It's about growing and changing. It's not just about believing some ideas in your head. It's about living out the Christian story and learning how that story of God's love and God's presence can change us in the right here and now and help us to find a way to live life well, to change and grow and become more like the people we'd want to be. So, what did Jesus mean when he said, "Come to me and I will give you rest, for my yoke is easy"? What did he mean by easy yoke? He meant that if we are apprenticed to his way of life, if we learn some great life habits from him, we will find a way of doing life that leads to a life lived well. So, my question to you, just as we start, is how do you want to live well? Maybe you want to be a really great parent. Maybe you want to be or have a really fulfilling relationship with your spouse. Maybe you want to be the kind of person who is deeply secure in themselves and so better able to enjoy a rich and fulfilling set of relationships with other people. Jesus said the key to all of these things, these ways of being, is two things. Living well involves boiling it down to two instructions: love God and love other people as you love yourself. And this was the simple yoke that Jesus was referring to. You see, Jesus was a first century rabbi, and every first century rabbi referred to their yoke. By that, they simply meant their way of interpreting the Jewish law. And Jesus had a simple way of interpreting all those complex laws. He boiled it down to two instructions: love God and love other people. It was simple because many teachers at that time would have made it incredibly complex and taxing, like 659 ways in which to keep the Jewish law. But Jesus said it's about two things. Firstly, it's about being richly and deeply connected to God. Now, why would that matter? Why do you think that's important? Because if you're connected to a God who created you and who loves you, this is the God who tells you who you are and what your purpose in life is. This connection becomes the deepest well, the deepest and strongest resource in your whole life. Everything flows out of that connection. It is the wellspring of your life. That's what the Bible calls it. Jesus may have expressed it as love God, but in fact, our love for God is always a response to the fact that God loves us. And God tells us that he cares about us and that he created us. and that he empowers us to learn and to change and to grow and become the best version of ourselves. So that first connection between us and God is really, really important. The second instruction talks about the horizontal connection between us and other people, about being richly and deeply connected to other people. These are the kind of connections where you can enjoy other people and not feel threatened or intimidated by them, so that their being brilliant doesn't make you feel diminished, or that their being vulnerable or needy doesn't make you feel drained or superior. So when Jesus offers us his yoke, he says, this is a way in which to live. Love God, love other people. He's offering us this way of learning. A yoke is a piece of equipment for getting stuff done. If I asked you to draw a circle and you drew a circle freehand, then the chances are your circle might be a bit wobbly. But if I said that you could draw around a glass or a circular plate or use a compass, then the chances are that your circle would be very, very much better. A piece of equipment helps you to do something well, and Jesus is offering us equipment. So I'm just going to bring up the next slide on my PowerPoint. I hope. There we go. Okay. Jesus offers us equipment. If I move myself out of the way, he offers us a yoke. He doesn't offer us a hammock, okay? He's offering us equipment, not an escape. What he's offering us is a way of shouldering the challenges of life. And life is a challenge. We mustn't pretend that it isn't. Jesus didn't say it wasn't a challenge. He didn't offer us an escape route. He acknowledges that life is difficult, that it is hard work, and that in order to live well, we have to be prepared to put in effort, to overcome difficulties, to work hard at learning or at earning a living, to work at having good relationships, to work towards a better society. And all of those things require effort and they require learning. And that is what the yoke is all about. It's equipment to help us to live well. Jesus says, life is difficult, but here you are. Here is something that will help you shoulder the load. And what he offers you is a way of life that must be learnt. We have to practice something if we're going to learn something. Whatever it is we're trying to learn, we have to practice. Over the last few years, I've committed myself to learning a lot about mental well-being. And as a result, I have taught myself how to meditate. And in order to do this, I've done a lot of reading. I've done a lot of listening to podcasts, and I have also practiced. None of this happened simply because I thought it would be a good idea to learn to meditate. It isn't enough to just have a good idea. You have to do something about it. But as a result of practicing, I've learnt a skill which helps me to create an enormously resourceful, peaceful place inside myself where I'm more able to hear God and better equipped to understand and connect with other people. So, what is it that you need to commit to learning? Well, maybe those life habits that Jesus talked about. But maybe, first of all, you need to learn more about what it means to be a Christian. Being a Christian is definitely a good idea, but it isn't just something that happens. You need to learn about it. It might be a good idea to start by reading a gospel, such as the Gospel of Mark, to learn who Jesus is. It might be a great idea to learn about how God can speak to you through the Bible by chatting to other Christians. Or maybe learning how to pray. That involves practicing. All of this learning will change you, but you're not required to do it on your own. In fact, it's ideal that you don't do it on your own. That's what church is all about. But this image of the yoke is one that we have a model and someone to imitate, someone by our side, walking step by step with us, helping carry the load, showing us the way to live and the way to walk. So, what about those helpful habits of Jesus? Well, recently I've been reading an excellent book by John Mark Comer called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry: How to Stay Emotionally Healthy and Spiritually Alive in the Chaos of the Modern World. I warmly recommend it, and almost everything that I've said about the yoke of Jesus has come out of this book. It talks about the disciplines, the habits, the way of life in which Jesus lived that we can also learn and follow. We've all actually had a taste of those disciplines during this period of the pandemic, whether we've liked it or not. Because those disciplines are, and I'll just list four of them, the idea of Sabbath, the idea of taking a rest in order to press reset, the idea of solitude, learning to enjoy and be at peace with ourselves in our own company, and using that as a way of connecting to God. The idea of slowing down and not trying to multitask and do everything all at once. And the idea of simplicity, making life as simple as possible. So those are the four habits, the four ways of life that Jesus lived that we can learn from. So I recommend this book to you, and I recommend to you the whole learning process. And if you'd like to learn any more about anything that I have said or talked about, I would love to chat to you. Do message me or be in touch. If you want to know more about living well, I would love to take you through 3 short sessions answering what I think are the 3 biggest questions that we all have. The first question is, who is God and what is he like? The second one is, what's the problem with the world? And the third one is, and what can I do about it? But I'll leave that there for today.